This has been sent in to me by email from Sebastian. He was born in Bournemouth, but very quickly moved to Birmingham. So I'm reading out his own account of his life as an adopted person as he sent it in to me. Apologies for any errors that I might make in reading along the way. I'll try to correct them as I go. But yeah, this is from Sebastian, and Sebastian, as I do, hope that this may resonate with somebody else out there. Now I know the answer to do dreams come true while I'm staring at the world through my rear view. My life had stopped, my heartbeat faint. I had stagnated since age 20. I felt frozen in time like the corpse of a prehistoric beast encased in ice. An avalanche struck me a long while ago. While I was unaware, I was just going about my everyday business as a young adult. I haven't really cared about myself since. My life in this world became extremely dull and unimportant after I lost faith in everything, everyone. During my 20s, I needed pocket money or a very modest wage to survive upon, so I would find a meaningless job to pretend I was still functioning and interested in pursuing something. But being around other people gave me little in terms of joy, motivation, and inspiration. Being, I suppose, a typical guy, or so I thought, I played sports sporadically throughout this time to feed my soul outside of work. But was I just feeding my adrenaline addiction? Was I just supplementing the other addictions I'd already picked up? Doing something physical where I could exert pent-up frustration and aggression while being praised for my ability to learn, perform, and work hard, where the money wasn't the end game or goal. I started to refrain from friendships and relationships, especially with new people outside my immediate family circle. I deemed most people worthless or unreliable, as back then I believed they would all eventually let me down. They were all too predictable and boring to me, trapped in their own chase following society's dream, success. Perceived success in accordance with the rules of this game we call life. Everything's relative, I suppose. Yet there was nothing that I had encountered in my early adult life that lit a flame inside me to drive me forwards on a similar path to those I came in close contact with. My own sadness and disappointment kept me in a bubble. I could not pop its membrane and escape its suffocation. This recurring feeling or thought that everyone else is the same deep inside. Each and every individual wandering the globe, all distracted in their present-day lives, heading into an inevitable oblivion. Doing the same thing over and over again like that movie Groundhog Day. To me, in the position I found myself in then, an adoptee from birth and a child that had been abused by one of their adoptive parents, that seemed like an insane existence. If I was one of these people, I would have preferred to move to the next life as quickly as possible. My mental and emotional well-being had taken a good beating by the formative years of age 19 to 20. I was unwell, or maybe just unaware. A major event happened to me in my household between 1999 and 2002. My parents divorced and we lost the childhood home that we were all raised in all our lives. Not so major, I hear you say. However, given the circumstance and my own history, it took all my trust away and removed all excitement and investment in this rat race we call life for me. My adopted parents split because my father, who I spent many a childhood day with, almost every day for 16 years, had been a child predator. A serial paedophile. At this time, I learned for the first time he had historically sexually abused 3 females from my adoptive mother's side of the family. The truth of his crimes and traits were only just starting to surface. It was only a few years before the turn of the new millennium, when I was 16, that this realization and revelation started to unfold in front of me. I was in my own first ever relationship at the time, my first fling with young love. My first girlfriend had already been through and seen divorce firsthand with her parents. The damage their split caused in her was recognisable to me, even at our young ages. She had noticed a lack of companionship between my adoptive parents whenever at our house and warned me it was a bad sign. I became on high alert. I scraped through my GCSEs just about, but with a major hurricane or tsunami on my horizon. Studying for my A-level exams afterwards was futile. I could no longer take academics seriously. My brain would not allow it. My home life was too serious already. I could not concentrate at school and at home simultaneously. My brain wouldn't allow it. I became hypervigilant to everyone around me, particularly noticing everyone else's faults and weaknesses. I started watching everything more closely, awaiting an inevitable betrayal from my closest. My hearing was becoming supersonic like Inspector Gadget's go-go gadget ears. My senses of touch and taste became less profound. I can't remember a change with my sense of smell, but something didn't smell right here at all, with what I was in proximity of and with what I was witnessing. An unnatural disaster heading directly for my path. I walked out on my first love around this time and the relationship we shared for 3 years. I just got up and left her house one day. Few words and even less truths shared. I could not verbalise or comprehend how to go about articulating the experiences that had badly affected me back in those days. Things between us had been bad for an extended period. Equal communication and trust had broken down. Nothing said of significance from my lips. I just knew I was finished and left her, never to return to this girl I'd spent great times with. The betrayals, deception and heartache combined between her and I, along with what I was seeing at home, was too much to take. Not to mention the start I had coming into this world as a baby. This was enough for me to recognise true love was bullshit, especially when I think about how unromantic and how unloved I felt. Distrust and skepticism were more powerful or more important for survival. My first girlfriend and I split acrimoniously, and I moved on to the next willing girl instantly, in the hope that somehow a different face would make everything I was experiencing okay, hoping my problems were in fact other people's problems and that I was perfectly fine and healthy, just struggling with some early adulthood stresses, that's all. How naive and how wrong. Maybe this ignorance or unawareness rings true with other adoptees out there. My new relationship and second girlfriend didn't forge anything better together. My issues were in me, stemming from my history and family. My mother and father's marital strife only got worse at home. The immediate family was falling apart at the seams. We were all about to lose the only existence we knew. Well, me and my brother as children, I suppose. Dad grew angry, volatile and temperamental. To be honest, he always was. His marriage was disintegrating. This just went up a level during this time. Mum had found somebody else now, but was maintaining her secret. Mum may have been an adulterer, but this was based upon the man she married being a violent, volatile paedophile. She required safety and support during a time when home life was dangerous and compassion was amiss. Yet Dad's true character and his crimes were carefully kept hidden for decades, and they had started in our family way before I was even born or a thought. So I started to believe all women and females were only about one thing, sex. This was the main reason why I had to walk away from the girl I had only ever loved at the time. She had become sexually mature and chosen me to be her partner. Yet I knew if we were to have a child at 16 to 18, given my origin story as an adoptee, along with the present facts of my home life, a baby that I may knowingly create could easily end up in a life nearly identical to mine, fraught with uncontrollable, inevitable pitfalls. No amount of carefully worded communication from me at that time could have clearly explained my position to her. At our ages or in the situation we found ourselves in, timing in life is everything. I had my beliefs and morals as a young man, but voicing them well enough or even letting them out to all these young women I had loved was impossible. My older sister and I had not been raised by our biological parents. Our mother could not keep us, and the two men she had each of us with at such young ages would not be around for too long after our births. Even at age 16, I was starting to worry about my sister. She had left her childhood family home by now. She was brought up by my nan and granddad for the majority, alongside minor visits and stays with our biological mother in an attempt to reconnect mother and daughter. Nan had passed away by the time I was 12. Granddad died before I was brought back to Birmingham in 1983. I was actually born in Bournemouth after my birth mother had run away from this city. She was seeking safety and some type of peace, I think. So our maternal grandparents were gone by 1996. My sister would have been 18, 19. She was forced into early adulthood, but her circumstances came at a price. Maybe exactly like our mother before her. Who am I to say? My adoptive mother, who raised me from somewhere between age 6 to 12 months right up till now, took me in as a baby when her sister, my biological mother who birthed me at 22, had already struggled and left her home city and family behind to go south to Bournemouth to save herself from more deep troubles and carnage. My two mothers are the two oldest girls from 5 sisters. Their mother, my nan, struggled mentally herself and physically also when raising the 6 girls, including my sister. My adoptive mum had now, in my eyes, joined the list of influential women, parents, caregivers who I unconditionally loved, who was willing to break the family unit apart, or disappoint me in her choices and actions, selfish or not. And I still didn't know what had become of my sister, as she'd gone off the radar and run away from the family after our nan died. Predictably, I turned to the males closest to my life for company, compassion, or just comfort. I still looked up to them at least. Brother, cousins, school friends, colleagues and teammates. This was my only way to navigate through this new world, which seemed like a minefield for self-destruction and deep sadness. A few years passed by, we sold our family home. It was renovated and almost unrecognisable to the one we spent our entire youths in. Dad had moved out previously. Up until this stage, my adoptive brother and I, as kids, had seen some of our father's aggressive, explosive tendencies. We understood Mum didn't or just couldn't love him any longer. Enough for him to be around any of us or anymore anyway. He continued to visit Dad in his tiny rented places. His heartache over his losses and the position he found himself in that period was clear. He was in a losing position of biblical proportions. Eventually, he would lose his freedom along with everything else. Prison was awaiting him for his heinous, deplorable, dirty deeds. My brother and I were his only captive audience. The rest of the family no longer needed this disgrace within sight. He went through a crisis caused by his blind abuse and manipulation, extreme mood swings, a lot of tears, and a lot of time when us boys were being talked at and not to. Our dad was highly strung, emotional, bitter, regretful, and at rock bottom. But he made do. He helped me to learn to drive and get my first job. He helped my brother with travel and learning and music and thinking about his future and his exams. However, his positive parental actions during this time should be marked with an asterisk. My brother and I were the only 2 people that would go near him from the family. We found out a year or 2 after the divorce that 3 of our family members, 2 aunties and my sister, would be taking him to court. As I remember this now, it was for the reason of abuse. I cannot remember if the words child or sexual, or both, preceded this abuse word when we were informed. Maybe my brain was filtering unwanted details out even in this moment, not wanting to face the severity of the deep-seated destruction caused by the man I looked up to as a youth. Now our father was accused of causing multiple women in our family's pain, not just our mother, at least 4 younger women if you include his wife, our mum. Although my brother and I didn't fully comprehend the actual severity or understand the nature for this extreme action, we were starting to understand the monster we had slept under the same roof as, the man who was our father, as well as the precarious position we all found ourselves in. All the men who had lived in our household were losing badly, and we probably never stopped losing up to this present day, 20 plus years later to some extent. Why try and bother winning at anything if one defeat can cause you to lose everything? My illusion shattered, hope diminished or extinguished, love, no such thing. This is how I really believed back in these hard days, on top of knowing no real truth of my biological parents and my own adoption. Everything is about survival. Self-preservation is what I learned here. There is nothing infinite, nothing is unconditional. When a better offer comes along or your time is up, this was my general outlook back then, maybe even now until this day. I hope this point of view is now slowly changing. Dad ended up going to prison for 5 years at the end of 2003. It could have been double the amount of sentence apparently, but I cannot say for certain. 3 of my parents, whether biological or adoptive, I had never truly known. A tremendously disappointing discovery as a teen. My many past and present traumas started to take a grip on me. I don't get informed about the trial date by my family, only after the verdict comes in. This moment I can only describe as hell on earth. My brother and I have been slap bang in the middle of a vicious war for 3 to 4 years, and only one side would be victorious. a larger war spanning at least 20 to 25 years. We had only just landed in it. Time to pick a side and discard a few precious lives, or not so precious, however the audience wants to see it. I went to see my father in prison shortly after he went in. I had been distraught at the thought of not saying goodbye. I needed to see his reaction to the result of his prosecution, to see his physical state, his eyes and his mentality, hear his words and to see his mood now, after a horrendous 4 years, taking heavy fire and suffering devastating losses in this battle. It was predictably depressing, but honestly deserved. I also needed some kind of admittance of guilt or wrongdoing by this man, or an apology at the very least. This was not forthcoming, and I had big decisions to make at 20 years old. By this time, I'd picked up several addictions, to substances and activities both, constantly jumping from one to another to fill a growing hole inside. They helped me give my lowly existence some type of meaning, no matter how pointless it felt. I hoped to hear an apology or an explanation in the prison visiting area. There was no such thing from this monster. How could so much obvious guilt and so many wrongdoings go left unanswered or unaddressed? Everyone's a liar, even if it is just blatant information being withheld. I go from caring to uncaring in a flash, from a team player to just an individual alone in the blink of an eye, from compassionate and empathetic to cold and ruthless in one click of the fingers. We lose an entire one side of our childhood family in one foul swoop, my brother and I. Father, grandparents, auntie, uncle, cousin, we will never see any of them ever again. And this event will lead up to my grandparents' death, while the man who raised us is deemed the ultimate example of evil in human form, locked behind bars. I seek help for my depression and addictions from doctors. I feel a lack of control from within and no desire to live any longer. Gradually, as I go through my 20s, I fail to find purpose or vocation that can distract me from the continuous pain of my experiences, or a social group that can offer me solace or loyalty. I chop and change jobs, money and objects seem like a complete waste of time and energy, as do any friendships and relationships I actually accidentally fall into by chance. 1 year after Dad goes away, I have a serious car accident under the influence of alcohol. I will go into detail about this accident next, which will explain the new rules I will apply to my own life afterwards, once I know my mental health is deteriorating rapidly. This mental fragility was a completely new concept in my life, and I had never thought of it during the first part of my life. So, with everything that went on up until the age of 21, I was struggling in every way. My car crashed almost a year to the day after Dad got sent down. This was the most frightening part so far because I could have easily lost my life. Was it a suicide attempt? I will explain. I didn't speak to any old friends anymore, nobody from school, football, teams or any jobs. I lost contact with all my closest pals by December 2003, without mentioning my father's demise that happened in the same month that year. It was easier to leave everyone I could behind in the past, rather than tell them the truth and face the shame, or share the darkest secrets. We arrived somewhere in 2004. I didn't want to go into the city centre anymore. It was too grey, too mundane, too plain and too samey. I had already been disgusting to many people by now. Working in some of those environments in town and knocking about with rubbish and trash people, you get dirty yourself, just by association. I was probably carrying too much dirty baggage from my youth already. Maybe I was just meeting mirrors of myself all along. I needed a glimmer of hope or a light at the end of the tunnel desperately. I left a fashion retail behind and went to the other end of our city, to a new town. I got a cushy, just cinema job, part-time. Before this, I had picked up my first level 1 FA coaching certificate in football, but the course didn't excite or ignite me. In fact, quite the opposite. The cinema job was cool because you could watch any film you liked for free once your shift was finished. I was basically an usher and a food server, selling and checking ticket stubs, cleaning screens after visitors left, handing out food and drink. No brain power required. My brain was still dealing with each traumatic event from the previous 20 plus years. My mate, who started as an usher with me, actually asked to be trained as a projectionist for the place after a few months. He was an intelligent man, much more than me in those days. Writing this now, I understand why he did this. He needed more mental stimulation or more authority or more importance. I guess he wanted to understand the process by which the images ended up on the big screens. He took me up to the projection room once, and it was a fascinating perspective, being above the whole building in the engine room of the cinema. It ends up being one of the more enjoyable jobs I've had. Unfortunately, the cinema chain sells the site to car manufacturer for a showroom to be built upon it. It's due to close by March 2005. In the December of 2004, prior to us losing all our jobs, we have a Christmas party organised for the staff. This consists of a meal in the town centre and then drinks at a club not far away. The meal goes as I planned: food, drinks and socialising. Maybe I have 2 to 3 drinks there, too many, but the meal is counterbalancing the effects of the alcohol. My mood remains cheerful and the atmosphere is good. In the club afterwards, the booze keeps coming and now I'm feeling my mood begin to drop. The fun and happiness turn to anger. The alcohol is exacerbating my true, deeply buried emotions, the ones that have been festering inside of me for a very long time, especially during the 1 year prior to this occasion, when I last knew of my old man being out in the free world before his sentence started officially, before my world turned black. After the club night finishes, I end up back at the cinema car park. Stupidly, I decide to risk driving my car home rather than being sensible and taking a taxi. I had taken these kinds of risks before, but never with this amount of alcohol or anger inside of me. I was feeling particularly reckless that night. Cut a long story short, I soon realised I've made a massive error in judgment. I tried to navigate my way down the long main road towards home and its many roundabouts back to my new house. However, the street lights are blinding me. It's well past 3 a.m. in the winter, and I keep hitting the curbs as I steer around these roundabouts. When I get to the largest island, 2 minutes from home, I notice a patrol police car on the opposite side of this largest junction so far. There isn't another car on the road in sight. If the officers believe I'm driving without due care, or I make a mistake in this point, I will be spotted easily. So I take the first exit off the big roundabout, planning to escape their gaze and to get home before they catch up to me, down the back streets. My mood turns badly again, just like my steering abilities in the moment. How did I end up here doing this? I inexplicably accelerate down a narrow residential road with cars parked on both sides and end up hitting a wall and a parked car. Both windscreens, front and back, shatter and disappear instantly upon collision. I have to swerve and drive up onto the curb and path to avoid hitting the back of the parked car head on and killing myself. My little cheap mini metro car gets crushed down both sides, almost like one of those concertina instruments being pushed all the way in, both hands on the player. I hit my face and body off the steering wheel and the car is totaled. I'm arrested 50 metres from my house, with the wreck left behind in the middle of the road. My face bloody, I hold my hands up when they approach because there's no way to hide my guilt. I'm taken to hospital quite a few miles away for a checkup. I make my own way home eventually at 6 a.m. and a disappointed adoptive mother is waiting for me. I am eventually suspended from driving for a year, given points on my licence and a small fine. What I understood from this point is, mentally, I am very unstable. I need help, urgently. But even at this point, when in trouble and with the law and nearly dying, I still don't seek professional assistance. I remember just before the point of impact seeing the parked car that I hit right in front of my face, with no thought to avoid it. Something else almost pulls me onto the curb and path like a guardian angel or a divine intervention or something that I do not understand, a force from above or an entity protecting me. And after the impact, when everything stopped still, I remember feeling a sense of reassurance and warning at the same time, like I could use my last cat life and there would be no coming out of another one. These mistakes alive. Another one of these mistakes alive. By my mid to late 20s and a lot of twists, turns and roadblocks, me being able to work any significant length of time or regular 9-to-5 job becomes increasingly difficult. There's a spell of 3 to 4 years between the ages of 28 to 32 where I have conquered my substance abuse issues, but depression and suicidal thoughts remain. My disassociation and lack of emotional stability comes apparent. I still cannot find a place in the world where I'm just about content or a friend I truly trust to be open with. One evening in 2013, I have a dream, more like a flashback nightmare. At this exact point, I am 2+ years sober. However, I have no job and no prospects. I am no longer going to the gym, and I am unable to exercise as I suffered a torn Achilles tendon. This left me unable to walk unaided for 6 to 8 months, the worst physical injury I'd ever had. And I had experienced quite a few up to this point. However, the major non-visible injury I'd carried my whole life inside of me was still not clear to me. The link between the evil man I grew up with and my adoption. I did not fall into my old junkie ways and remained clean. This clear and conscious state opened up something in my mind from childhood I had deleted, a long-forgotten memory that was dying to resurface. I have a dream, but nothing like the other Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of, something deeply troubling, devastating, and damaging. The day before the dream reappears to me, my mum had told me a story of my sister as a young girl being in our old house. Mum had walked into our living room at the old house and remembers a vision of my sister and father sitting at different ends of the sofa. My sister had been over to visit. My mother describes the little girl looking very frightened and shaken when asked to go upstairs with Dad to collect an object of some type. Seems like it's the last place she wants to go with this man. Her lips fastened tight, with fear in her eyes, but no words able to come out. As soon as Mum tells me this recollection, something pops or clicks in my mind's eye. When I'm awake in the middle of the day listening to her, I can only describe it as a subliminal flash of myself as a young boy in the same position as she describes my sister being in. Similar circumstances, but I see me instead of her. This instantaneous flash quickly passes and I continue with my day. I tune out and ignore it in the moment. The dream I have shortly afterwards that evening is an event I recognise, a distant memory from the worst part of my childhood. Something that, looking back at now, changed my personality for good. My brain pushed it down automatically as a survival mechanism, I think. I do not want to remember it, ever. Pure fear and hatred planted into my heart by my closest loved one, who I relied upon, and the only way to cope or move on to the next day was to erase it for what I thought it would be forever. At the time, I believed what my father told me and followed his orders, as you do as a kid with your dad. I had never put 2 and 2 together. When his trial came about in my early 20s, from this point as a child, I always remember being incredibly frightened by this event and my adoptive father's reaction to me during and after it. I cannot remember my exact age, but I believe it was somewhere around 5 to 8 years old. This dream that I'm about to describe I have at the age of 30. It is a like-for-like instant replay of a truly terrible event with Dad. That would instill a fear in me, like a poison infecting me for my entire future. This next part comes with a warning, so if you're easily triggered or offended, please be aware. I'm so young when this happens to me that I do not know what sex is yet, or barely. I'm certainly unaware of men being able to have a homosexual intercourse. I have never heard of gay people or anything. This is the 80s and I'm in primary school. One afternoon, Dad approaches me in the living room at home and says, "Seb, come upstairs with me. You've got to have your medicine." He walks me up the 16 steps holding my hand past the wall of photographs of our whole family that were hung up on the staircase wall. We get into my bedroom and he says reassuringly, "This medicine has to go to your bum. It won't hurt. And he will do it carefully." He may have shown me a tablet at the time, but in the dream this tablet was not present. I suppose like a suppository. Now as an adult, after the fact, I believe this to be false information. This could be part of his control and manipulations, so not to startle me, and everything seemed normal. I remember him telling me to lie down, face flat, on my single bed in my room. I think he's closed the door behind us when we enter. I don't feel anything thrusting or him on top of me, but some time passes when I'm face down in my pillow and duvet. Soon after that, I feel an extreme burning up my rectum. As I feel it enter me from behind, I jump up and start screaming, jumping up and down on my bed in agony. Dad tries to calm me down, looking worried, and I leap off my bed, continuing to scream and run to the floor of my room. I can't calm down. The heat, irritation, and discomfort is too much. Then he grabs me by the arms and shoulders while I'm still wailing. He keeps telling me to be quiet and shush. Then when I don't listen to him while he has me stood and static and trapped, I see his face change. Along his demeanour, his worry turns to anger, but an elevated anger I have not seen from him prior to this. I remember seeing the whites of his eyes completely surrounding his iris, plus more of his teeth at the edges of his mouth as he grits them and threatens me. He says, "You better keep quiet and calm down now, or you're going to upset your mum." He may have even cocked his fist in the air at the time, because all these threats made me shut up quickly. Remember, I'm 5 to 7 years old. He's probably late 30s or 40s. He takes me by the hand again and we go back down the stairs again into the living room. He turns on the fire and tells me to sit in front of it. He also warns me not to move or make a sound. Then he sits on the sofa, guarding me like a prison warden. Ha, karma. I put my legs up against the wall to where the fire is positioned. With my bottom facing the heat coming from the fire, it felt better with that heat because it took my mind away from what was at my bum. If I moved with agitation, he would remind me to sit still. If I moved an inch, I could feel this sensation inside me. Eventually the pain eases and Dad asks if I'm all right. I say yeah, and he allows me up on the sofa with him. But not closely. I'm at one end and he the other, with a clear space between us. After some time passes while we all watch TV, Mum comes in and all I feel is relief. Dad doesn't say a word to me during this time, looking straight ahead with his arms folded and miserable look on his face. Not once does he mention the medicine to Mum while I'm present. This was so intimidating when it happened to me at such a young age that I made sure not to think of it again, especially during childhood and in the old house, and I dreamt the exact same thing at the age of 30. It's now been 10 years since I had this flashback dream. My memory banks wiped slate the clean for me automatically during childhood. Up until this year, I prayed that I had some type of illness or condition I couldn't take tablets, hoping and deluding myself that it was in fact medicine, like he said. However, listening to my mother tell her anecdote about my sister when she was young in our house and the fear she had witnessed with my sibling brought me back to that suppressed memory. Only when I was 100% clean of addiction. Long after he's found guilty, sent down and released, 15 years afterwards. I don't release this information to my family until my 40th year. How do you go about bringing up such horribleness when it was a recurring theme in the family for so long? Decades, certainly, and maybe generational issues. Now the event is as clear as day in my mind. I have no doubt it happened. I remember how seeing his teeth and brutal facial expression made me stop smiling myself as a kid. I distinctly recall looking at myself in our bathroom mirror, practicing my own smile, and felt that even I looked scary if I bared it for too long or if I showed too many teeth. I had started already withdrawing my natural happy face, my genuine smile and honest expression, controlling or censoring my own emotions in childhood. 10 years passed since my flashback dream was opened and then put on the shelf. At the end of 2022, my closest school friend contacted me online and we met up. We had been absent in each other's lives for certainly 12 to 13 years, but more like 20, as we only met up once in that time. After seeing each other again, he encouraged me to seek professional help for the traumas I collected on my life's journey. He had found a good career, woman, and had got married, eventually having 2 children. I finally plugged up the courage to speak to all my family about the abuse at the hands of Dad as a child this year, 2023. I had to ask my mum if she had ever asked him to administer me medicine at that age in that area of the body before I really knew the truth. I have also tried to explain the negative impact of him going to jail at 20 and my loss of drive, motivation or interest in bettering myself since. My fight-flight response is messed up. My desire or ability to be around people or even give them any of my time has been very difficult. I believe parts of my brain have either stopped working or don't function properly. Surviving isn't that important anymore. I don't want to be around family or talk about any of this to them. I need a goal, aim or purpose that I cannot see as of yet. A future away from all the constant reminders. My adoption gave me abandonment issues, maybe unresolved grieving problems too. This was made worse when Dad did what he did to me, and it's compounded further when I discover what he's done to my family. And being found guilty in the court of law, inevitably I lose trust in everything. I keep the secret of my dream to myself for 10 years, but it takes 25 years for me to remember. It is only within this last year that I have been honest to myself, my family, and old school friends regarding this, regarding me. I suppose to protect them from sadness, pain and guilt. Just negative emotion in general. I have since contacted my biological mother for the first time ever. She believes I could be autistic because my biological father, who I've never met, was late diagnosed with this in his late 50s. I soon realised the same man, my so-called father, sexually abused her first in our family back in the early to mid-70s, a significant factor in her giving up her 2 children and running away to Bournemouth in her early 20s, not to mention the mental health battle she has incurred over her 65-plus years, although her child abuse story is just as rampant as our whole family one that I just described on its own. If she was the first victim, then maybe I was the last, like bookends of a horror story that no one wants to view. Medicine was the same word uttered by that beast when he preyed on her too. I start to see the patterns. I haven't worked for 10 plus years. I've experienced zero motivation to go anywhere or to listen to unreliable voices. Joy has been hard to find. Anxiety and anger affect me interacting in everyday life. I think this is some type of PTSD. I didn't know where to start to find a solution to this. I wrote these words as an introduction or summary to hopefully save time with professionals in the future, in the hope and sheer desperation that I can find the correct help before it's too late, if it's not too late already. Update for January 2024. A man without a plan is not a man. My plan is to work with the charity RSVP at a slow, steady pace. It's a charity organisation that helps and supports those who are victims of rape and sexual violence. I was referred to them via the police in April 2023. Once I had reported my historical personal case of abuse, I have started working and talking with RSVP to get better at my everyday capability to function like an adult or a man. Now, in early 2024, I am seeing somebody in a counselling position regularly from this organisation to really aid me in focusing on and clearing my past events and traumas while dealing with the difficult feelings and thoughts of everyday life. I would like to work, whether that's voluntarily or paid, in the near future, and maybe I will need to retrain and take some courses too if my brain is not completely destroyed by now. I feel I've learned quite a lot about the human condition, psyche, about honesty, authenticity, kindness, compassion, self-worth and self-identity. There is no one-size-fits-all model to this healing and opening up journey I'm currently on. I know now I was entitled to the truth all along, however. But maybe it took me until I was 40 to have the maturity to deal with subjects of such a complex nature. I do believe my story can help other vulnerable or struggling individuals who may not have opened up their own Pandora's box to their past pain yet. Or even just as an example or a resource of support and information to help guide others in similar situations who may not have enough friendly faces or family around them to see the love and contentment in the world we all find ourselves occupying. My biological mother and I talk every day now almost. We have done since April/May 2023. We really should have had professional mediation in place prior to approaching each other. This part of my recent story is one of the most important factors in maintaining my focus, my truth and my search for my truth. This is vital. I found a parent who I recognise myself in. I found a lady and a love that sadly, like me, has suffered unbearably for long sustained periods of her youth and life. I found someone who shares similar interests, morals or ways of thinking and being. I found the invisible umbilical cord that had not been cut no matter the time, space and distance that has been between us. I found someone that I can match physical traits and characteristics to for the first time in my existence, a comfort that's almost alien to me. I found a love unlike that I experienced with my adopted parents. Please remember, my 2 mothers are sisters removed from each other's lives for some time. I'm not discarding or disrespecting my adoptive mum either, please be assured. It's just different. This is a love that is natural, organic and true, unselfish and sensitive in its roots. I found another crazy being like me who wants to strive to improve their knowledge and health regarding all the bumps they've been through on the long road. Most importantly, I found a friend, a real friend. A single support who took the time to listen, advise and guide, no matter the pain they would have to endure, even if it wasn't possible back in '83 when times and circumstances were even harder and more raw. This beautiful soul and spirit has cared deeply about this story of mine and me the same about her origins, along with the trials and tribulations of her past and early years. I don't believe we will leave each other again from now on. Weirdly, I don't think we ever did. These mother-child connections are extremely hard to sever. I am so unbelievably grateful and lucky to have been given the opportunity to know and learn about her and learn about us. My self-identity and character feels like it's forming properly now, trying not to fall into old formed habits from my adoption like masking or people-pleasing. It's not required with her at our ages. Fingers crossed, I've now found a stepping stone towards the future. I followed many signposts in my life that rang true in my gut and chest to get to this stage. Be aware of the universe's roadmap. When your hairs on your neck or arms stand up on end, or when the alarm bell of curiosity sounds aloud during simple everyday living. Follow the loose threads that seem like they will lead you into an important truth. I have most certainly made strong decisions in the past year regarding my future, something I haven't always done. By being aware of these significant, almost missable signposts over the years, my journey has begun, a journey to a better, more fulfilled life. My two mothers have really been significant in starting this long-delayed and avoided work on my self-healing and self-care. My sister and brother too, and their children, all my family. Love yourself, adoptees, love everyone, and remain open-hearted. Resentment is like taking a poison yourself in the hope it hurts another person. It is pointless, and like sweeping leaves on a windy day, abuse is poison too. On top of adoption, it can create a deadly concoction of suicidal thoughts, isolation, depression, and low self-esteem. Do not be afraid to hold your head up high and be proud of your start in this world. Be proud of yourself and your loved ones, no matter what. You are enough. You were always enough. You just had the wrong guidance or incorrect information to inform you that you belong and this world is for you too. The world is yours and mine. We can share in its wonderment, beauty and awe together forever. Trust me, trust others. Most importantly, trust yourselves. So, wow. What a story. Thank you, Sebastian, for sharing this story with us. It's a deeply touching story, and it's obviously really good to hear that you feel that you're finally putting the pieces back together for yourself, and being able to move forward. Very touching indeed. And as I said, thank you for sharing. If you have listened to this and you have a story that you'd like to share, that you don't need to be a writer, it doesn't need to be perfect. I'm happy to read out whatever. It's just about us being able to share our feelings, our emotions, our stories, getting them out there, to number one, get it out there, because I'm very well aware as a therapist how cathartic and therapeutic writing is. It's really helpful in order to help us process our emotions. But also, if there's anything about your story that might resonate with other people, then that's a great thing, isn't it? Because this adoptee community is still very young, and we're only just starting to connect with each other, because usually there are secrets and lies, and it's hush hush, and you're the only one in your family, or you're the only one in your classroom, and you're probably the only one in your friendship group, and so having a community where we can share all of this with each other is super vital. So if you did want to share with me and have me read it out, then please do just contact me via the website, which I will link in the description below. It's really important that you subscribe to the channel, so that viewing's fabulous, but if you can subscribe and like as well, it definitely does make a difference, and helps the content get shared further around. So thank you, and I have more lined up already to read out, but please keep them coming. Thanks. Bye-bye.